Thank you so much for joining the Dr. Whisperer podcast show. I am your host, Sharon Feckety, and you are here to listen to others talk about the business of medicine. Don't forget to subscribe, share it with somebody else that is in the business of medicine so we can all learn together. Thank you for being here and enjoy the show. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. You know who I am, but you don't know my guest yet. So I'm going to tell you a little bit before we get started because, nobody reads the show notes. And the more I say that, everything's in the show notes, the more I realize who the hell is reading the show notes. So I'm going to do Mike a solid here and just read a little bit.
Thank you.
Which I don't think I've ever done before, Mike. So I hope you enjoy this.
Flattered. I'm flattered.
And since 2018, when I started the show, I've never read a bio because you know what? It's nice and succinct.
Good.
Okay. So before Mike starts, because we'd rather hear from Mike today than me, Mike leads a health consultancies focus on brand and organizational transformation. Boy, do we need that. He's the CEO of both Hailey Sault, the digital performance marketing firm for health and wellness brands, which, I'm totally into, considering I own a small social media company.
There you go.
And the Institute for Healthcare Excellence, creating performance-driven cultures with enhanced well-being, greater stability, and new capacities for growth.
All pretty lofty.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good. But I'm not going to read the whole next part, but being the co-founder of the Believe in Better project sounds pretty cool. So, Mike, you are here and you are ready to tell us about why you are doing what you are doing today. And then we can get into the nitty gritty.
I love it. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. So, Mike, how did you get to where you are today? First of all, it looks like, is that your real office? So anybody that's watching, Mike has an incredible background. I don't know if it's virtual or real yet.
No, it's real. I love being in the office and I need to be in an office no matter where I am. I can't work from home.
Okay.
I love the fact that some people can, but I need that place where I can focus. So this is our office in Duluth, Minnesota on the tip of Lake Superior, an old industrial building that 8 stories of an old mattress factory, post beam brick. We moved in 2014, been in a couple of different spaces here. So yeah, this is live.
Yeah, that's gorgeous. I love anything when somebody says industrial and like I could see it. You have brick. Are those real brick walls?
Oh yeah. I mean, this goes back to probably 1895. In mid 1890s it was built. Still original maple flooring. It actually is on the diagonal, so the under flooring is on a parallel and then the overlay is diagonal, which I've never seen before except in this building.
Oh, that's so cool. So if you're just listening, sorry about your luck. Watch the video. It's on Facebook and YouTube. So that's really cool. I love that because I think that speaks to, I really believe in living your brand. And although I am home right now, I do all my podcast shows from my home office. This is a fake wall from Amazon.
Good.
Thank you. I do work in a well building.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I have the aesthetics there. It's very important. I believe that you need to be surrounded in the right aesthetic to inspire the tough work that you're doing. So I love it.
Yeah. And for us, being in Duluth is kind of a badge of honor. I mean, Duluth is a really over the last 20 years, an emerging like Outside Magazine best town. Hailey Sault's a 4-time winner of one of Outside Magazine's best companies in America. And we're sort of proud of how that represents our culture in living a healthy life, making time to get outdoors, to as you said, to be well, and really to sort of live our brand.
I love it. Oh,
yeah.
I feel this. I'm glad that we started with that. All right, yeah. Mike. So tell me how you got to doing what you do today.
So I backed into advertising in the late 1990s through digital, worked for a digital startup, back then an internet startup.
Wow. So that's like, did everybody hear that? He said 90s and a digital startup. So we'll throw back. So everybody thought you all were crazy.
Yeah, and everybody was going to be Microsoft millionaires, and then these guys kind of turned out to be scumbags and screwed it. And so I got to go to an agency in Minneapolis, Fallon, and they were doing some really breakthrough work. And Fallon was probably one of the best agencies in the world at the time, working on BMW Interactive right before BMW Films. So, which was a sort of groundbreaking interactive medium experience in the early 2000s. Realized that that the big city, big agency life really wasn't for me. Moved back to Duluth, worked for an agency, bought it from its founder with my partner in 2012, rebranded as Hailey Sault, and have been focused on healthcare marketing for the better part of 15 years or so.
I'm so sorry. Okay. I'm kidding.
Well, when we got into healthcare marketing, I was like,
yeah, why? Why did you do that?
So
you wanted a niche?
Wanted a niche, exactly. Okay. And it was expertise we could take from community to community. So, Duluth is 2 hours away from the Twin Cities, and back then, how are we going to grow out of the Duluth market by saying, hey, we're super strategic or creative? Well, there's 100 agencies in Minneapolis that are the same way, or in the neighboring states, but we could take our healthcare experience and parlay that into, and we've worked East Coast to West Coast. We're working in Louisiana right now. So the especially when you're patient centric, those insights are fairly universal.
Okay, cool. So what is so what has that been like for you, Mike?
It's been a great
Let's
ride.
be honest.
Well, I thought it was going to be dull as shit to get into healthcare marketing, right? Pardon my French, but
surprise.
When at first I was like, oh, the healthcare generally doesn't take big risks from a marketing standpoint. Healthcare, especially when you're working with hospitals and health systems, most of the care is it's based on specific protocols, and so you find that transfers to a lot of marketing. Now, we find amazing clients that are visionaries that allow us to break through, but as a category, it doesn't generally test a lot of boundaries. And so, but when you start to be more, as an organization as we are, more purpose-driven, and you're aligned with your clients' true purposes of creating healthy communities, and we've seen more of that over the last 6 or 7 years, just getting away from treating conditions to try and create healthier communities, healthier people. Then it gets really kind of exciting. And as our missions and purpose are aligned, you feel like you're really being fulfilled in the ability to do that work. And especially as digital has provided more opportunities to quantify those successes over the last 5-6 years, then you can really see the fruits of your labor, as opposed to, hey, we did this kick-ass TV campaign and it feels really good, but we're not sure if we got any results.
Well, it's so interesting that you say healthy communities, because that is a big interest for me, being in a well building, and it's rare to even hear these well buildings, but here, because we're in Tampa Bay, Jeff Vinnick, who's the owner of the Tampa Bay Lightning and also, a billionaire, just saying. Do you know him? You heard of him?
I've heard of him. I don't know him.
Right. I mean, nobody really knows him, but some people. But when he decided to work alongside Bill Gates and, Bill Clinton and this company called Delos, which is located in New York City, and they decided to create well communities, well buildings, well communities. And then I live in Tampa Bay, and Tampa is the first actual certified community. So, but what I find interesting, the reason I'm saying this to you in particular about the marketing and the digital experience and how I feel, who am I? But I feel needs a little more help, because I just spent a weekend in Tampa. I live near the beach. My girlfriend lives in Tampa. So we stayed in the Well District.
Okay. And
I booked a stay well room. My girlfriend, who lives in Tampa, I don't live in Tampa, she said, oh my God, I never heard of this. And I laughed, I go, of course you haven't. I said, you haven't because it's not marketed correctly, in my opinion. Now, I'm not a billionaire, and I'm not saying anything bad about Vinnick and the team. They're phenomenal. The fact that they've created this is great. But a lot of people don't know the messaging. So the messaging, no matter what you build, right, Mike, no matter who you work with and who you want to affect, if you don't create it digitally and even aesthetically, like where you are, right? Like to me, I look at where you are and I'm like, wow, like you live your brand because you realize that all of this means something, how we're presenting, how
For sure.
showcasing it to the world. So can you speak to that a little bit, Mike, about how you help? Because you're saying you're focused on brand and organizational transformation.
Mhm.
So how do you do that? I want the audience to understand how you do it, because it's not something that happens overnight.
Yeah, for sure. Now it happens a lot differently than it did, like say 6 or 7 years ago. I alluded to the fact that back in the day, branding meant, again, a ton of cool designed outdoor boards,
Right.
radio, TV. You probably put a pop-up on your website. And today, like the way that well, let's talk about patients first of all. So the way that we as patients interact with healthcare brands is very passive. And if you've sat in enough boardrooms inside a hospital or a clinic or with doctors, and oftentimes they're thinking about, we have to share that we've got the latest Da Vinci robot or technology, or this guy's man or woman are coming and they've got incredible talent and a CV. People generally don't give a rip about that kind of stuff because we're all walking around thinking about the million things we have to do every day. We're not thinking about, oh, my orthopedic care, my heart care, my cancer care, until we have a trigger event. So unlike a lot of other consumer journeys, we're not consumers until we have a physical event, like something happens to us. So there's that sort of awareness phase where the brand can be sort of omnipresent. And you see that, like, I was just in Clearwater, and so driving through Tampa, you see a lot of Advent Health sponsorships. So, for instance, and we were working with Advent Health, and so you see a lot of their presence and that sort of awareness of Advent Health, but that's not a real differentiator. So, brand today is really connected through digital engagement and not the traditional, like, big production kind of stuff. And so when you get more focused on the patient journey, on patient personas, for instance, leading the journeys, and you really understand how to interact with people at different stages of whatever health journey they're on, and if it's condition specific, then what those consideration sets are, like the brand exists in a lot more authentic ways than it ever did. So do we need $2 million TV spots? Maybe for some awareness, but if you
Maybe
really
on the
want,
Super Bowl.
yeah,
Maybe during the Super Bowl.
if you want real results, it's about like the everyday messaging that shows up in our social feeds, the things of interest. It's the podcast. It's sharing expertise and being relatable through digital channels that really makes the brand relatable, interesting, and at a certain point turns that ROI through somebody, when you're in their decision making consideration set, like you're thinking about different healthcare choices that you have, and people are more than ever than before. So if you said you had some knee pain and your doctor was like, okay, well, I'm going to refer you to surgery, like we're getting so much better at exploring what our options look like. We're being more self-determinant in our choices and not just taking that referral carte blanche. And so that's where brand differentiation really occurs in those moments, and understanding those moments and being present at those moments and I would say authentic brands, not brands that are always out there pitching across mostly social platforms. Like that's the way to create real brand performance.
So then can you be specific now and just tell us exactly what your company provides?
Yeah, so we do a lot of work. In fact, I'm going down to Madison tomorrow to work with a new client on starting the process behind all that looks like creating personas. So the personification of people who are living their lives and starting their healthcare consideration. So for most of our work with the clients, we build out 5-6 personas, sometimes for different service lines or conditions, and sometimes just brand personas. So that used to be characterized by target audiences, women 25 to 54 primarily, who are making decisions. But now we can get so granular about where those decisions are made, what the barriers to healthcare are, what kind of decisions they're making for their families, where they spend their time digitally.
Mhm.
And so build those out, build out journeys, create certain specific user experiences on own platforms like your website or other social platforms as conversion points, so when somebody has enough interest, you want to bring them into the point that they're actually requesting information about care, which is getting a lot harder now with HIPAA and Google and Pixels, and that's just become a
AI.
lot harder. Yeah, actually, AI is an incredible breakthrough, and
My
we can talk
God.
about that in a little bit. But all that is sort of the behind the scenes work, and then we're fortunate to have an amazing design team and content team that's been doing this work for up to 15-20 years. And so when they walk in, like they already know how people feel, and so designing those experiences is frankly just easier for our team.
So can you break it down for the doc or the practice manager that might be listening and doesn't know what you mean at all,
Yeah.
because she worked running a hair salon
Mm-hmm.
before she was running the practice?
Yeah.
No pun intended, everybody.
So
Just little jokey joke. But yeah, really, like when you say that persona is like, me with a social media company, people think I do websites. I'm like, okay, oh my God, wow. Like we're so far removed from, like, I don't even understand how to use my own website. Like, you think I can help you with yours? No, that's not what we do. I also, just because I have a podcast doesn't mean that I do podcasting for other people. It means that I host a podcast.
sure.
So, and in healthcare, it feels like, because, dare I say, Mike, let's give some real talk here. There's a very antiquated age demographic that is typically in a C-suite
Mm-hmm.
and wants to do that very, when you say billboard and TV commercial, I mean, I get panicked a little bit, and I think about the people that sell the, what are those called on the website with the little X's? The
Pop-ups, interstitials, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. And that so what is it? And do you work mostly with hospitals, larger practice, boutique? What is the demographic?
Yeah, so our clients are on the provider side. So physician-owned clinics, specialty groups, hospitals, health systems. We do work with a few small independent practices, and their challenges are like when you talked about that person that's running the practice that maybe worked at another retail, hair salon or any other kind of retail experience.
Nothing wrong with hair salons.
No, God, no. I need a haircut, and so that person, like, the learning curve is really high, but they also come into it with a pretty wide perspective and a lot of opportunity versus the person that's come up through healthcare communications on the client side. Like, their lens tends to get narrower and narrower. And when you're talking about the C-suite dynamic, I think what you're saying is like older white dudes sitting in the boardroom saying, hey, we need to see TV outdoor boards because that's what appeals to us. And that's really been central to our best clients' performance. Like, when you get out of your own heads and realize, this is, I think, a good example when you start to think about who to connect with. We were several years ago working for a health system, and they were launching a women's health center, and we were meeting and doing our planning, and the audience that they were talking about and trying to represent we're all basically like Lululemon moms, right? And that's who they wanted to represent. And so we were thinking about digital talent and TV talent and stuff like that. And they they weren't saying like Lululemon moms, but everything that they were talking about was like, that's who they wanted to see.
Every doctor listening or watching knows that your traditional insurance only goes so far. Your malpractice only goes so far. So there's real risks that can actually keep you up at night. You know that. I know that. I've watched you stressed out the next day from all of these insurance issues. Well, SRA 831B admin helps you mitigate these risks and lower your tax liability by putting money into a vehicle that is tax advantage to self-insure risks that fall out of your traditional property and casualty insurance. I would not have them as a sponsor if I did not believe 100% that they can actually help you. So to find out more information, please check out the website that is in the show notes. Contact them today. I promise you won't regret it. This podcast is sponsored by Doc2Doc, the personal lending platform designed for doctors by doctors. Doc2Doc believes that traditional lenders overestimate the risk of lending money to doctors, focusing too much on challenges of their financial past and giving them insufficient credit for the promise of their financial future. Yeah, we love what Doc2Doc is doing within our community. That is for sure. And we encourage you to visit their website at doc2doclending.com. Learn more about them today.
My comment was, have you been to the grocery store lately? Like, do you see who is in our community? And when you want to see who's in your community, go to the grocery store. These are people buying the essentials. They're your consumers. And that sort of dynamic exists in the C-suite as well, because you're typically talking about very well-educated, professional type A people that are probably only a microcosm of the overall community. And what you're really communicating to is the broader community. And so you've got to get out of your heads. And so developing personas helps us to really identify and get real about what people are experiencing. Sometimes we identify things like food challenges. I mean, not necessarily just for dietary things, but people who have basic life challenges. So how do you communicate the benefits of orthopedic care to somebody that has food insecurity? And so when you start to think about those things, you get out of, hey, we've got this kick-ass Mako, laser robot that ensures accuracy, reduces healing time, things like that, blood loss. And because that doesn't matter to those people who have these other pressures in their life. So when we become patient-centric, that's when we can really impact performance today versus that dynamic, that internal dynamic and the tendency to want to say, here's our latest technology, here's our latest talent, we're building a brand new facility. So, this is going to be this amazing patient experience, which is important, but not as important as a doctor that will sit down, or a nurse that will sit down across from you, look you in the eyes, listen to you, ask you questions, understand what's going on with you. When you look at research about why people switch healthcare providers, generally it's insurance and cost, number one and two reasons. But right after that, it's a doctor or a nurse that listened to me, that paid attention to me, that understood me more as a person than a number. You think about our interactions with physicians, especially who in that consult with you are like one eye on the computer and one eye on you, and they're trying to log information and then talk to you out of one ear. And so like those experiences are no good, and they're becoming a lot bigger. They're becoming noticed a lot more.
Well, yeah, I mean, I had a doctor that diagnosed me with hyperirritability because I disagreed with him.
Yeah, crazy, right?
So I went on TikTok, and I think I'm at 90,000 views and 7,000 comments. And because, they didn't know that what I did for a living.
Yeah.
And I called the compliance officer because he worked in a big corporation. And I said, I just want you to know I'm not going away. And neither is my social media.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that if if people were more understanding of how important it is that people in the healthcare community in particular, that were more understanding of what the patient wants versus what you're trying to offer or sell or whatever it is, you would do so much better. You know, if people understood what you just mentioned about their own community, you know,
Right.
You can't, I have had many doctors move from out of state in Chicago and set up shop, and they'll pick a demographic like Sarasota and go, well, Sarasota, they have a lot of money. So I'm a neurosurgeon, but I'm going to put this aesthetic equipment right here because that's, you know, going to be my target market. And I'm like, wow, like so way off, because you have to understand the culture, the community, like who it is. And all of that plays a huge role when you're trying to project something digitally, because you have to be your brand wherever you go.
No question about it. Can I throw a quick wrench in the conversation?
Sure, I love wrenches.
So today, and now I'm sort of approaching this from the Institute for Healthcare Excellence point of view. One of the issues is that our physicians and nurses, like, they've been, no better way to say this, like, they've been rode hard and put away wet the last 3 years, right? So they legitimately are struggling to have the skills, the time, and the ability to truly care for patients. So as we come off of a year in 2022 where a lot of healthcare suffered poor financial performance, and unfortunately a lot of that was driven by their market investments, not operations, but the pinch then gets put on operations. So at a time when burnout scores and talent loss are at an all-time high, they're being asked to be more productive, to see more patients, and there's just no capacity to do that in a human way. And so the interrelatedness of both marketing and, when you think about the brand, the actual patient experience also needs to be driven by providing physicians and nurses with both the time, the skills, and the ability to really treat people and to ask, in like your case, maybe the right question. So what are you experiencing? Okay, like, so you're maybe agitated about something, or maybe agitated about the situation, but that person given the time to ask better questions, be more introspective, really get into things with you, it may be a longer conversation, but you're going to get to a better direction for care or treatment or whatever it is we were seeking.
Well, Mike, like I've said many times, you know, listening is not waiting for our opportunity to speak.
Yeah, that's hard. I mean, if you ever sat across from somebody that when you're talking, you can just see, like, they're the words are on the tip of their tongue. Like, they're just waiting for something, the break in your conversation, so they can interject what they're thinking. They're not even listening to you.
Story of my life. That's why I'm in this business. You know, and when I say that back to a physician that has diagnosed me, say, with hyperirritability, I will say, well, you know, you have not listened to anything that I've said.
Right.
So that's why I am disagreeing with you. And that's why you think that I'm irritable. And it's so important that, you know, fortunately, your job is not to change the leadership of any organization, but that is where it starts. I mean, I can't help myself, right? Like, if we're talking, I wrote a book about mental health, and I'm speaking tomorrow about mental health in the workplace. And all I do is talk about how, you know, it starts at the top. And so and what you said too about, like, the poor, the doctors, the nurses, the advanced level practitioners, the front office, the back office, that have really been almost abused. And at this point, like, if the practice themselves has not asked them how they're doing,
right,
and provided them an opportunity for some grace.
Yeah.
And that cycle just repeats itself. It becomes very difficult because what does everybody cut? They cut marketing, brand, you know, all the things that will keep them from gaining the new or positioning themselves in a better light. But that is, you know, one of the many conundrums for the niche that you've chosen, which I love, you know, because I've had it myself, because I've been in it so long.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is that we have to start listening to our community and to our patients. When people ask me why I do what I do, if in the medical sector, even if I'm talking about marketing, branding, podcasting, these interviews, whatever it is, it's ultimately only to help the patient.
Right.
It doesn't look like it, right? I mean, we're talking about branding and marketing. It doesn't look, Mike, me and you, nobody's like, they care about us. We actually do.
Yeah, actually, we give a shit about like the people that we're trying to connect with. I mean, we
Yeah.
spend so much of our time, and with your social media company, you can't be successful if you really don't understand the mindset of what people are going through, and understanding that on the other side of that TikTok screen is a real human, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just a quick anecdote: we were working for the Emily program, a national eating disorder treatment organization, and before we started working with them, most of their messaging was about food and issues with food. But as we really started to explore and go down the journey of creating those personas and understanding those journeys, what we really discovered, a couple of key insights, were that it wasn't about food. It was other behavioral health factors, that people often lived with these conditions with their eating disorder for up to 7 years before they decided to do something about it. So imagine like living with hip pain for 7 years. I mean, you're still talking about healthcare, but with this behavioral disorder, people are living with this and contemplating it for up to 7 years. And when they engage the most with content was overnight. So like, which indicates that they're up worrying about this. It's keeping them up, or maybe they're acting out their disorder. And so when we really started to get into that versus just the product, if you will, in this case, centric aspect of dealing with food, but understanding the behavioral challenges of the human, that's when we really had some breakthrough performance, and saw a lot more people getting care, taking that, what we termed as the courage step, that ability to take that first step to come forward and ask for some information, ask for care, have a consultation, and then people started to turn their lives around. And so that's the stuff that really matters when you see people getting healthier. And with all the rise of mental health issues and behavioral health issues over the last 3 years, like that's some of the most compelling work that we do right now, is helping people treat those conditions.
Yeah. I mean, people
But
are,
that,
they're not eating a box of Twinkies because they feel good about themselves.
no, and that just gets back into the human on the other side. So you were talking a little bit about that target and understanding that. And so how do we create better performance? It's by focusing on the people that we really want to serve, and understanding what drives them, and how we all behave, especially across digital media today, because healthcare is one of the top 2 or 3 choices we make in our lives. Home, college, vehicle, and healthcare, and maybe not necessarily in that order from a cost perspective. So, but healthcare is one of those things that has the least cost transparency, and the thing that we have the least amount of directive over. So, helping clear that up and just creating that connection for such a big life decision generally is how we create success and performance, by focusing on the behavior of people.
Well, I love all that. I do want to hear about your Believe in Better project. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
The Believe in Better project started in 2017. Somebody that was really powerful in the Hailey Sault team had been to something called the Nantucket Project, which sort of aspired to change the world. And we were noticing in 2017 how many facets of healthcare were broken. And so we wanted to create a place where people that were innovating, and typically on the edges of healthcare, not big health system care networks, but people who were innovating, were bringing breakthrough ideas into their communities, their markets. And so it was a platform in the first couple of years for people to come and speak in a TEDx style presentation. But we were really focused on wellness even back then. So the whole conference sort of paired healthy activities, eating, discovery, yoga, wellness, hiking with these breakthrough ideas. And so naturally 2020 put a stop to that in-person event. So we had our first virtual conference in 2021, and then reinventing it through the Believe in Better podcast, bringing those conversations, much like you do, to the world, trying to get breakthrough speakers to share how they're creating transformation and creating a better world through the podcast primarily.
Yay, podcasting.
Yeah, and it's a nice brand to live alongside and kind of in between our companies, and gives us the ability to express our maybe more purposeful parts of our team's lives, and sort of fill that bucket.
So why Hailey Sault?
So we bought the company from Howard Klatsky, that founded it in 1975 as one of the best regional agencies in Minnesota. Rebranded as HTK Marketing, and that just was like, that wasn't that compelling. So we follow consultant David Baker, who suggested that the best agency names sometimes are just total non sequiturs. Like, you don't have to like dig deep for meaning and all this stuff. And we'd gone through that process.
Hello, Nike.
Yeah, I mean, somebody was like on our team when we were going through the rebrand. Somebody pitched like oxygenate, and then they said, well, we breathe life into healthcare marketing. I was like, no way. Like, I am not going to a new client saying that shit. So
I love it.
I was in our conference room, and our family spends a lot of time in Sun Valley, Idaho, and our house is in Hailey, Idaho. So I was sort of daydreaming about being there. And I texted my partner from the conference room, like, hey, where's your favorite place in the world? And she said, Sioux, France. Like, why, why? And I said, our new name's going to be Hailey Sue. And she texted back, WTF. And I was like, I'll be out in a couple minutes and explain it. And I said, hey, non sequitur, our two favorite places in the world. We work hard to go to these places. It's our reward. Our team works hard. This is a destination. And all of a sudden, when we shared that idea with the team, they started bringing forth ideas of why Hailey Sue represented their destinations and things like that. So we realized it wasn't like some top-down driven BS name, and all of a sudden it really resonated. And when we talk about that with our clients, they describe their own Hailey Sue. So if we do this work together,
I'm saying it wrong.
Yeah, but it's cool.
That's okay. No, it's not cool, because I want to make sure. Listen, look at my last name, Mike.
Yeah.
Right. He almost spit his coffee out, everybody. I got it on camera. So Hailey Sue is spelled Sault.
Yeah.
So of course I would say Hailey Sault, and I'm waiting. I'm like, there's got to be some salt. Where's the salt, bro? But I love the explanation, because I do think naming a brand, naming a company, there's always some meaning behind it, and I'm always interested in the story. So
well, the founder, when I explained to him what we were going to rebrand as, and he was old school, and he is still old school, but a brilliant dude. And he said, well, that's crazy. Everybody's going to mispronounce it. And I said, even better, gives us a chance to talk about, the meaning and create the narrative with our clients. And so I really have no issue with people mispronouncing it.
And I don't care when people mispronounce my name. It's a daily thing. Everybody apologizes 95 times, and I'm like, oh my God, you should hear my maiden name. It's fine. Or even worse.
That's funny.
So I love that. I love that you've taken a piece of what matters the most, which is family, really, and bringing that into the business. I think it's great. Everybody that, all the doctors that heard I was calling it the doctor whisperer told me it was a terrible idea. I said, perfect.
Yeah, right. Perfect. Like, let's zig when others zag.
Perfect. Whisperer. Why would you say whisperer? Everybody's going to say it. So everybody, to this day, when I get introduced, everybody smiles. And that was what was important to me. They were like, and she calls herself the doctor whisperer. And I'm like, no, I am the doctor whisperer, bitch. What I say.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
Because especially in healthcare, like if you're going to be the doctor whisperer, oh, did you go to Harvard? Did you go to Stanford? Like,
Mhm.
no, like I'm a real person and I know shit. And
Yeah.
I can tell you stuff to maybe sort of get past the God complex.
Yeah. I'm going to just whisper it to you. You don't know
Yeah.
what the hell you're doing. It's usually
That's
what
funny.
I say. So I appreciate what you're doing, Mike. I think that obviously it touches a nerve with me. I believe so much in branding, and I believe that there are so many organizations that need transformation in so many different ways. And I love the ability to do these things in a more organic way instead of pretending, to always be so perfect, but to really think about the year that we're living in.
Mm-hmm.
And how are you going to bring that to life digitally, which is, where everybody lives today, whether anybody likes it or not, that
Agreed.
is the life that we are in. So let's all accept it and move on. Well, Mike, I appreciate you. Thanks for being on the show today.
I appreciate you. This was a great conversation, and thanks for making it so easy to have a natural conversation.
A little chatty chat.
Exactly.
Till next time. Bye, everybody. Don't forget to mitigate risk. Visit 831b.com for more information. Remember to check out Doc to Doc, the personal lending platform designed for doctors by doctors.